Welcome back. Welcome back for our next panel, DeepFakes, Seeing is no longer believing. A panel moderated by George Proorocu, IT Ops Manager, Cybersecurity Fraud, ING Bank, and Mihai Roman, Head of Security Engineer, ING Bank. The stage is yours, please.
Thank you. Yes, hello everyone, and welcome to the world of deepfakes. My name is George, as mentioned earlier, and I'm joined today by my colleague Mihai. And today we will dive into the world of fraud and scams. But first, let's go a little bit back in time to last year, when a finance employee joined a video call with whom he thought it's the CFO and a few other high-level colleagues. Unfortunately, they were all deepfakes, and they managed to convince him to wire an estimated $25 million before everyone realizing that this was fake. And what we're going to try to do today is to make a parallel between the rise of new technologies and the increase of scams that are including deepfakes. And I'll let my colleague Mihai deep dive into this.
Let's talk numbers and a bit of history. 2020 didn't start well, and I think everybody recalls it. Why? However, in the second part of 2020, we had the generative AI concepts which started to rise. We heard more about them, and it looks like an interesting technology. If we make the translation with regards to the number of attempts of scams, there was no use of AI in this field. It was still a stupid Photoshop, if I can call it like that, being used to impersonate somebody else. That brings us to 2022. Somewhere around this period, we had a bit of a boom. We had ChatGPT, we had DALL-E, and a couple of others that came available. So people were very enthusiastic. Oh, we have generative AI, now we can do stuff. We see a slight increase in the number of attempts of scams, and I'm gonna make the difference between the successful ones and only attempts. And in 2022, we had also a bit of, let's say, playground where AI in general was used to prepare scams or attacks. Time passes, we land in 2023. Now the AI agents concepts appears in the market, but something happened in the meantime. ChatGPT with their models behind, they got new versions, same story for DALL-E. And the bad guys, the attackers, start to dig more into this technology. So we see a tenfold increase in number of attempts. Still, the usage of AI focusing on deepfakes was still below 1% from the total number of successful attacks. Another year passed. Now we hear about the agentic AI, multimodal even. However, we have not only generative AI from the perspective of creating text or getting information. Now we start to look into video. We have images that are generated based just on a prompt. And as it has been already said during the day, the bad guys are the first ones to jump on a new technology. And that land us at 20 times more attempts. And now in 24, we see also an increase in what is being called voice cloning. And I think most of you should remember the Microsoft call center guy that gives you a phone and asking you to reset or to do whatever on your laptop. And next to it, we start to hear about job interviews, fake job interviews. We're gonna touch a bit on this in more details in a couple of minutes. That brings us in 2025. Most of the companies now are starting to adopt AI, like a Copilot or ChatGPT and the other technologies. And that makes the mass bigger for attacks and for scams. When we look at the end of September, so 3/4 of this year, and with the estimated for the last quarter of the year, the global impact in financial losses could reach $45 billion. You may look like, okay, that's a lot of money. The main point here remains on the number of people remains the same. So we didn't triple our population on Earth, but then the balance between the good and bad guys stayed the same. However, the bad guys have more leverage than in the past. Before we dig into this scenario, gonna make a bit of a disclaimer. What you will see from here on, it's for awareness and educational purposes. Please don't use it to become the bad guy and attack somebody. Even between friends, you want to make a joke with somebody, try to avoid it as much as possible. Why do we say this scenario? I've mentioned about the scams, so the focus was more from a financial perspective and a financial loss point of view. However, that's not the only field where this is being used. It comes more and more into politics, and we're in a special place for that today. It goes also in changing the views of people. And I like to make the link with the Paris Agreement, where we have to reach a certain number of CO2s by 2030. Yeah. Does anybody has anything to win or to lose if we make it or not? At the first glance, you may say no. However, if we start to look behind the scenes, yes, there are people which will win if we make it, or others that will win if we don't make it. Last but not least, let's look into the corporate world. We all discuss about phones and multi-factor authentication and so on. However, the human touch, it's still there. So if I have George calling me, I know already who calls me, I already have a trust relationship there. Think twice next time. And it's just a simple example with a couple of steps that we have identified and we have seen in how an attack can go. Gonna focus on the first part. You need to gather that information. You need to find your crowd, your attack target and population. Crawling through social media, that's an option. You have newspapers, you have all kinds of portals from where you can gather information. Let's say that I have my target defined, then I start to send mails. Remember 2022? We had ChatGPT. I give some instructions in a prompt. Now I get a nice template email which looks very legit. It will not have grammatical issues in it, or hopefully not. So my life becomes easier. Then you get some feedback, you may not get from some of them. From the ones that react to your mail or to your trigger, we split the scenario into parts, and we call it as a high potential. You may look at it like a human point, a human decision there, where then we can go into two paths. One a bit more elaborated on the top, where we'll have a demo of deepfake on a video call and an audio one. And the bottom one, it's a bit more automated from that perspective. In both cases, the goal remains the same: to compromise your victim. And by compromise could be like having a transfer done by the victim towards one of your accounts or towards somewhere else, having the victim buying gift cards, which is still quite popular in the States even these days, getting information, confidential and private information about that person, even ransomware, we can go in that direction. And yeah, we can dream also with the crypto wallets and everything that can land on your personal device or not. But everything drills down to people. And from both sides. One, the attackers. Second, the victims. The number of people on this planet stays more or less constant over the years. If you recall the first phase of the attack, where you have the gathering of the information, before the age of AI, you needed a team of, let's say, 10 people. You had guys specialized in gathering information from social media. You have guys specialized to read through newspapers. So you had 10 people. Then you had 2023, the generative AI came in. Do I still need 10 people? No. I have my Copilot ChatGPT or something. I can automate my mails. Now I have agents. I can have an agent focused on scrolling Facebook, let's say, another one LinkedIn, a third one just going through the newspaper. So my team of 10 now can be reduced to half. And then we have the multimodal agents. Looking at this here, do I need a human still to make a decision if my victim, it's a high potential or not? No. I can feed that agent with information from myself or from the other agents, and then that agent will take a decision for me. So that drills to the multi-agent system. So you needed 10 humans, 10 persons, then half, then now maybe one. We need to pay attention because most of these agents or activities now can be automated. However, the hallucination of an AI, it's still there. So being a bit pragmatic, we need to double, triple check before we take the next action. Enough in numbers and with theory. George, please go forward with the real stuff.
Thank you, Mihai. So now that we saw a little bit how an end-to-end scam like this would look like, and in our hypothetical scenario, we are focusing on a potential target of corporate people, mostly focused on engineers, where the scammers are trying to hook them with some very attractive job offers. And then further changing the scam based on the profiles of the victims, if they're high potential, or moving even further, maybe they can infiltrate the company that they work for. And basically we saw, and you can see on the screen, for each of these boxes, we can have, in 2025, agents that are running the show. For some of them, it still requires a little bit of human interaction, and we're going to have some demos in a second. But nowadays, having this multi-agent system, then we can have the interaction between these boxes doesn't require necessarily a human touch. So we can have, basically a system like this that can be almost fully automated. And now if we're looking at the high potential victims, and we go a little bit on the track where in some cases they schedule one or more live interviews. And here we saw in the past many cases, depending of course what they want to achieve, they will put more or less resources into it. And we've seen also cases where they had a bunch of fake interviews, like going first HR, then a few technical interviews, very detailed technical interviews, then a call with the team so that they feel comfortable, maybe a call with the manager so that they're already kind of part of the family. And then they will try to push to get the information that they need, or to make the victim do the actions that are needed for the next steps of the scam. And what we wanted to show you here, it's what kind of tools actually the scammers are using, and we're going to make quickly here a video, and then I will use an open source tool just to make it as a deepfake. And basically, this kind of tools can be also integrated in live calls. We're not going to do that due to obvious security reasons. But we're going to show you how easy it is just from a very simple thing like my Mac, and what is going to be the quality of it. So I'm just going to deepfake this video that I just took. I'm going to use Mihai's face. So I'm going to change. Yeah, and here normally takes around maybe 20 seconds or so. And this is an open source that you can, of course, play with at home. We are using very basic things. Of course, this can be improved. It can be much better. When you're having a GPU, for example, can be integrated in a video in a live call as well. And yeah, basically this is the output. And you can see that I look a little bit like Mihai here, just a few seconds. But it's as easy as it gets. And furthermore, this can be, of course, integrated in a live call. So we just wanted to show you a little bit how easy it is to generate very high quality deepfakes nowadays. And going back to the parallel and to the timeline that we showed earlier, even if we look just a few years back in 2022, this was part of one of our presentations back then. And this was a little bit the technology that we had at that point. And you saw what we did just now. And even a head rotation was a bit complicated back then, but now it's almost perfect. And it's very complicated to actually see if the video is legit or not. And now moving a little bit further, because we only have 30 minutes, but we wanted to go a little bit through some cool things. Let's say that the scammers identify the high potential that is working for a company that is very interesting for them. So what they're going to try to do, because they got a lot of information from these calls that they had with the victim, and now they are still missing two things. They are missing just the password of the engineer on the corporate network and MFA access, because they got all the other pieces, and these are the only two that are left. And we're going to hear how an audio deepfake sounds like for this particular case. And actually, audio deepfakes became quite popular in the past years, especially in the United States, where they adapted some of the old scams, like the accident scam, because it's quite easy to use them. You only need 7-10 seconds of an audio of the person in order to build a model. Of course, if you need really high quality, you will need more audio content. Basically, we're going to show you a little bit an example now. The engineer is Mihai, let's say, and we're going to hear first my original voice and then the cloned voice of Olivia, and trying to convince Mihai to give the MFA access and the password. And let's hear a little bit the quality of first my original voice and then the cloned one. Mihai, this is super urgent. We just been hacked, so this is super serious. And my account has been compromised. I'm calling you from my wife's number because my phone has been compromised as well. The hackers are transferring money as we speak. Quickly give me your password, and when I will tell you, please approve in Microsoft Authenticator, because I really need to quickly go and disable the servers that I have access to, so like that we can stop the attack. And now let's hear a little bit how the cloned voice of Olivia based on the same audio sample.
Mihai, this is super urgent. We just been hacked, so this is super serious. And my account has been compromised. I'm calling you from my wife's number because my phone has been compromised as well. The hackers are transferring money as we speak. Quickly give me your password, and when I will tell you, please approve in Microsoft Authenticator, because I really need to quickly go and disable the servers that I have access to, so like that we can stop the attack.
And imagine that before, basically the scammers had to check, okay, who is the manager of Mihai, then try to manually search for some audio files. Maybe, I don't know, maybe she joined a podcast, or maybe she was talking at a conference like this, or maybe there's some corporate content, or maybe even some public social media posts in which you can hear her voice. But nowadays with agentic AI, you can just have an agent that is scrolling all these kind of data sources, mapping it based on LinkedIn, for example, and then gathering the voice samples, building the model, and then the scammer just has even a generated template, calls the victim, tries to get the information, and then further goes to the next step. So unfortunately, indeed, with all the new technologies, they are moving faster and faster, and they need less and less scammers in order to do these kind of complex attacks. And yeah, we've heard so many, let's say, dangerous things, but how do we actually protect against them? And this is a question that we've been trying to answer for some years now. Unfortunately, we didn't find the secret sauce. The best thing that we can do for now is awareness, because we come to conferences like this, we are talking to you, we're showing you what kind of examples are out there, and probably you're going to go back to your family, friends, colleagues, you're going to tell them, and if at a point someone along the chain is going to be in the case of facing an attack like this or a scam like this, then they might have double thoughts and maybe not fall for it. Then the second one is more on pay attention to details and ask personal questions. We see more and more that people are aware that audio deepfakes are out there. There was a few months ago a quite famous case where they were trying to impersonate a CEO, sending some messages with some very good audio deepfake of the voice of the CEO to one of his executives. Fortunate for the company, the executive realized it's something fishy, asked a personal question, and basically the scam stopped there. So when possible, ask some personal questions that are not public on social media, and the scammers don't have access to it. Then for all the high-risk actions, like, for example, large bank transfers and so on, this should not be done by a single person. And we know that in most of the corporations, of course, this is implemented, but we see a lot of small businesses and medium-sized businesses that are still having in different departments these kind of situations where a single person is able to perform high-risk operations. If in your companies you see something like this, just address it with your management, because this should be fixed. And last but not least, split the business and private devices. We see a lot that when scammers are identifying these kind of high potential targets, if the company that you work for is interesting for them, they will try to push it a little bit to try to get some infected files in a bit of a smart way, tricking your corporate defenses on your corporate device and then get inside. So we saw a few cases like this, and they are getting a bit creative, more and more creative. So always make the distinction between business and private devices when you're having interviews and things like that. And I think with this, our presentation is done. I'm not sure if you still have time for questions.
Yeah, so we've seen the voice imitating thing, but what about the accent imitating thing? Because most of the people have different accents, and I don't know how we are with that at this point of time. I haven't been following too much.
You just spoke for 10 seconds. Go for 1 minute and you'll have it. It's just a matter of having enough data or more data.
Enough vowels.
And then depending also, because our voice as well are not flat in all kind of situations.
So we are there already.
Yes, it's just a matter of having access to that information, to that data.
Nice. Well, not nice, but nice.
Yeah, and
Thanks.
This was one of the reasons why we also added the swap between a male and a female using the same voice sample. So like that, you can see a little bit that you can play a lot with the accent. And
Any other question?
the video generating tool, what is it called? And also, can you detect programmatically whether it's AI generated deepfake?
Yeah, this is a very good question. For now, since technology advances very fast, almost daily, you can look at certain patterns within the video, but yeah, with the newer versions, they're usually addressing those kind of patterns, so it's a bit harder to detect it. So it's a bit of a cat and mouse. There are solutions out there that are detecting videos that are generated with deepfakes, but also the people that are generating or they're improving this kind of algorithms, they are looking at those patterns, so they're fixing them so that they are not detected as being deepfakes anymore.
If you look in the example that we have just done, we have chosen only the face swap. In this one, you can play with the age. There are a couple of more options, so it can go crazy. But due to time constraints and also power, because if you start to add more and more, it requires more power. It can go scary. And don't recall if the version that we have here supports programmatic input and output and generation, but there are others which can allow you to do that.
Thank you, Mihai. Thank you, George. I'm sure this is a presentation which raises awareness and definitely made me be afraid of AI. We all need to pass interviews, and sometimes we are asking ourselves if we are truly talking with the real CEO. Sorry, but we still have a question.
Yes, quick check. So we are all relying for digital onboarding, right? Like for pictures, for videos, for taking picture of the ID. Do you have any issues or known attempts, successfully eventually in fooling this kind of digital onboarding process? Because this is the core way of the banks, onboarding new customers. And with this high quality of faking, it might be jeopardized, this whole idea of digital onboarding, and get away with the people from branches.
Depends how far in the automation you want to go into onboarding. If you let the system to decide, yes, the system can be tricked. For us, we are somewhere, and we had tough and ugly discussions at that level with our business colleagues in the past, where they wanted, of course, speed. But then we said, okay, what that means? That means that it's a machine that will decide if the picture of somebody, a selfie, and a picture of your ID card is the real one. In the end, it's in between. We said we don't want to go a full machine decision, but neither a full human decision, because you have agents behind this kind of tools which are specialized in detecting fake passports, fake IDs. So it's somewhere in between. But looking at onboarding and only at the pictures, that's not enough, because you can have false positives, you can have false negatives. So we put it together with the second step on the KYC, on the Know Your Customer processes, where they go one level deeper in checking for facts. In the end, it's if you have an account to another bank, that's a fact. If we know that they have done your onboarding in person there, then our trust in what you served us, it goes higher. But I will not recommend the full automated. Also with the ID cards, with the passports, there are some done so well that even a specialist has to ask for a second opinion to a colleague or to somebody else.
Yeah, and this goes a little bit to the previous question, because if we're talking about IDMV and onboarding, basically all these platforms, like the famous ones, are kind of actively improving, trying to detect any potential jailbreak device, because in many cases they are emulating the camera and adding a layer of deepfake and trying to trick the system like that. But they're also actively adding many new layers, trying to detect if the device has been jailbreaked, and then checking different patterns that this kind of deepfake videos will be able to will contain. So yeah, it's a bit of a cat and mouse game as well. So
To my knowledge, this automated, under European Union AI Act, this automated onboarding is classified as high risk. And according to the AI Act, high risk AIs can be utilized only if the final decision is human based. That's why I think this AI Act is good and will help protect our rights and our identities. But it is a long way to implement AI Act correctly, and who knows, maybe next year we'll talk about it. Another question? Please, quickly.
Oh, maybe it's a comment. Do you have data? What is the false positive rate for humans detecting deepfake instead of AI detecting deepfake? And is this the next step to AI cyber war?
I am sure that at this moment we are not champions on detecting deepfake.
Okay, what is the silver bullet then? Silver bullet. What is the silver bullet in dealing with deepfake?
Human interaction. It lands on seeing the person in front of you.
Awareness.
So we digitalize till we come back to human interaction.
Seeing a human in person makes 10 times more trust than...
Last question. Do you agree if you educate every children how to make a deepfake that will be safer for children?
No, because by the time that you teach even a small group, technology is 5 steps ahead.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for this great presentation and for raising awareness and help us to be more attentive when discussing during an interview.